Hi Thomas,
Hello.
how are you?
Pretty good, thank you. How are you?
I'm okay, thanks. Thank you for taking the time again.
Of course, that's why we're here.
Fair enough. So where I want to start with is, we kind of discussed a little bit the last time we spoke that you struggled with writing early on, and then Audi came and then that kind of opened the floodgate.
Something weird happened, yeah.
But kind of behind all of that, what is it like? As you are the primary songwriter, this might be an assumption of mine, but you seem like someone who puts a lot of pressure on himself. So what is that kind of period where the band doesn't know what you come up with yet, but you have some ideas, and what is that like for you?
It's not so much pressure, it's just like expectations and excitement for the new adventure to come.
Right.
Yeah, and this time the songs, when they start to come, they came really easily.
Okay.
It took a long time to get them together. I was in the middle of the songwriting process for more than a year. But when they came, like you said, all floodgates opened and it was just a lovely ride. And then when I got the songs done by the end of April last year, 2019, I did a keyboard demo and then sent it to all the other band members, and that's the most horrible moment in this whole process.
Okay.
To hear your bandmates' first reaction to the demo, because how heartbreaking would it be if they didn't like it at all?
Right.
Because we are married to these songs for the next year and a half at least. So I really wanted them to get the similar kick out of the songs as I had gotten from them when I was doing that. And luckily, they all did.
Okay.
At least they said.
Well, because will you change the song if you kind of feel that click isn't there, in a sense?
I use a lot of time to make the songs as perfect as possible so that I get a kick out of them myself. I even use a dictaphone, like a really bad quality dictaphone that I do the songs to, and then when I go outside to have a smoke, I listen to them through the dictaphone. And if I get a good feeling from the melodies and the songs through that little device, then I know that there's potential in this.
Right.
And yeah, just a couple of days after the band heard the demos, I got some really lovely raving responses, and I was so relieved. There was a couple of things, like I remember Troy sending me an SMS that it's all brilliant, I love it, but this one song, that's really good, but what on earth were you thinking about the arrangement? How much seawater have you been drinking with this arrangement? And I was just laughing and then listening to it, and yeah, he's right, you need to change this.
And that kind of conversation, and I suppose because on the previous album, Endless Forms Looks Beautiful, you kind of had those thematic discussions with the band as well, talking about kind of
yeah, this time as
nature.
well.
Okay.
Yeah, the same thing. I think Human Nature is a very logical sequel to the previous album. Actually, if you take the previous album and attach the beginning of this album to the ending of that, it goes beautifully from The Greatest on Earth to music. So thematically, we're sailing in the same waters. The first 9 songs of the album being the human part of the album, and then the last song being the nature part. The first 9 songs is all about stories about humanity, human beings, human nature, sang by a human voice, or 3. And after that, you put on the second disc and go to nature and relax for 30 minutes with an instrumental orchestral piece.
Sure. Well, let's start with the second part, the instrumental piece, because when you do kind of this, because I read that this was the plan, that you wanted kind of this big instrumental piece. So did it feel like a risk in a way doing something like that? Because obviously you've had long songs and a lot of instrumental, but kind of devoting an entire kind of side of a CD to it, or a CD to it.
You just get the sensation of what you need to do. I can't really explain it, but from the beginning it was obvious that this album would include our Nightwish's love letter to planet Earth, and it needs to be instrumental orchestral music. I can't explain it any better, but it just needed to be there. And then when I introduced the idea to the other members of the band, they were like, yeah, sure, this is great. And even though almost nobody from the band plays in that song, Troy has a couple of Ilian pipe parts, Floor does a bit of singing, I do some piano, it still sounds like Nightwish for some reason.
Almost to me, at least, it talks about the cosmic perspective. Almost, kind of the idea that, we're just. I think it's even said that we're a speck of dust, a speck of dust suspended in air, kind of Earth. So.
Well, we are.
Well, that's the thing. So when you take this kind of step back view, for you, what is human nature in the sense, or what are human beings in the big picture for you?
We're just one species of animals roaming on this mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. That's the big message of the album. And that message is a very optimistic one too. I've heard some commentary from people who have heard the album saying that you have done a really dark album and it's like human versus nature and humankind is destroying the planet, and is this what you want to say with this album? And at least to me personally, it's the complete opposite. It praises the beauty of humankind and the potential that we have for goodness. Just imagine there are 7.8 billion people on this planet, something like that, and the vast majority of those people are really nice people. It's just a few rotten apples making a lot of noise.
No, but I find that very interesting because usually when people feel very insignificant when you take that kind of big perspective. But in a sense, and I agree with you, that it's more liberating almost in a way, because it says we're all part of the same experiment, we're all part of the same kind of process.
Exactly like that, and truly understanding our place in the universe, understanding evolution, how we came to be, that's makes you so humble and grateful, and realizing how we are part of everything. And for me, that's a comforting thought. For many people, it might be a frightening thought. Maybe especially if you are brought up religiously, for example.
Right.
But for me, that realization made all the difference. I've never been happier.
And I suppose you had this realization quite early on, because you've always been interested in biology and nature and that kind of stuff. But is it kind of the way you grew up that you have this connection to nature, or do you kind of know where it comes from?
Yeah, I've lived all my life in the countryside, by the woods, by the lakes, so I think that's where it comes from, this connection to nature. But I also think that if you're not interested about science, nature, mysteries of the universe at all, there's something wrong with you.
Fair enough.
What a fascinating thing this is, everything that's happening.
And then, well, thematically, as we go from nature, because we as humans come from nature, but we also make stuff, so then you have kind of the human nature. So that element, and like you say, it isn't like pointing a finger and saying you shouldn't do this or you should behave like this, but what is it about our human behavior that is it the psychology of it? What is that interests you?
Just we're such an interesting species. I think it was Carl Sagan who said it the best. Let's see if I get this right. Human species is the universe's attempt to make sense of itself. Don't quote me on that, but I think you get the idea, you get the drift. Sure. And I think that's so beautifully said.
And this might be a bit vague, but what role in this kind of human development does music play for you in terms, because there's mention of the symphony of music, nature, and that
music, art in itself.
Sure.
We are the only species who's actually doing art. And what a wonderful thing it is that there's a thing called imagination. And actually track number 5, Pan, is all about human imagination and the power and the potential of it. Again, Carl Sagan, imagination often takes us to places that never were, but without it, we go nowhere.
And I mean, in terms of imagination and songwriting, you have to delve into your own imagination and kind of figure out what you want. So for you, what is that process like then? Is that something you can just tap into every once in a while, that kind of stream of inspiration? Or how does that work for you?
Yeah, you need to be on the mood. That's why we took the year off after the previous album, because you can't force creativity. At least I can't.
Right.
And I felt like there's nothing in me now, so we need to take a breather. Otherwise, we would end up creating crap. But once you get into the immersion, once you get on the flow, like I did doing the songs for this album, it's the place that I feel most at home.
Okay.
It's a lonely place, but it's a wonderful place for a while. And it's just the ultimate feeling of content and excitement. Writing those songs, creating audio out of nowhere that kind of makes sense and makes yourself and people feel something.
But like you say, lonely, so it is, especially early on, a very solitary process for you.
Yeah, the songwriting process. Once you then meet with your bandmates and start dressing the child, so to say, then it becomes a collective experience.
Sure.
But the songwriting process is a lonely one, and just the way I like it.
And in terms of, well, one part about songwriting is also, as a band, you've made quite some music over the years. So as a band, you want to keep your Nightwish identity, but you also want to progress, and you also want to try out new things. So how do you
that's
balance
vital.
that?
That's really vital, but it comes really naturally. I don't really have to think about it too much in advance. None of us do. It's like you have your certain mannerisms. As a songwriter, you are always quintessential Nightwish when you put on the albums or the songs, but there's always something new that is exciting, even shocking for some people, and that's the way to keep the process interesting to yourself and to the other band members. You have to challenge them a little bit. For example, on Human Nature, the vocal acrobatics are just insane here and there, and Floor really loved the challenge, and boy, what job she did.
Because, well, I just talked to her, and we kind of mentioned this kind of the fast pace, and then the up and down melodies, and then so when you write these, do you kind of in your mind go, okay, I'm going to try and challenge her here, or how does that?
Yeah, I hear her voice all the time,
Okay.
but all those melodies, all those things are there for a reason. They have to complement the lyrics and the story, and the reason that the vocal melody in music verses is what it is there for a reason. And once you get the lyrics, you might catch up with that reason.
And as you mentioned earlier, there's not one singer on the album this time, it's three. So did you have a similar thing of trying to challenge Troy in a sense, in an aspect that he hasn't really shown with Nightwish?
Challenge everybody. I mean, in the track Harvest, for example, there are some Ilian pipelines that are insanely difficult to play, but he nailed it. But yeah, it's an album for singers. And we really wanted to take everything out of the three wonderful vocalists that we have and just stuff the songs with harmonies, and that's what you hear.
And a song like Harvest then, because Harvest seems to fit Troy really well. I don't know if that makes sense, but
It was tailor-made for him
Well,
to sing, exactly like Endlessness was tailor-made for Margot.
Okay.
So same thing. But it has a strong Irish vibe in it. You are in the moors, you have the folk part, Caelid in the middle. So it was just a natural thing to keep it for Troy to sing.
Okay. So in that sense, how much planning in a sense goes in before you even write music? Do you plan a lot, or do you kind of figure it out as you go?
I'm a strong believer in flow of mind. But before that flow of mind, I need to know what the song is about. I need a theme, a story. Like, I need to do a song about music landing on top of mankind. So, okay, this song is about music. How do I do that? It's never like I start to jam. Oh, this sounds good. What could this melody be about? always the other way around.
Okay. And so was there one, well, for instance, one of the tracks that stood out for me was Tribal. So a song like that, where do you start? Because you say certain things are tailor-made for people. You have a new drummer in Kai this time around, and there's a lot of space to drum on that track. So was that kind of with him in mind as well, and then that kind of stuff?
Well, when the idea of doing a song about tribalism, about cults, about why we want to so desperately belong to a certain tribe and then stop thinking, you know, I'm part of this club, nothing will change my mind. And I thought, okay, this is the theme, how do we execute this? So then we thought that how would a band sound like 20,000 years ago if you gave them modern technology? And naturally it would be very percussive, very primitive, very tribal, really heavy, dissonant. And yeah, that's how the song ended up being.
But was it for you as well kind of a nice way to introduce Kai? Or
it just came naturally, I guess, but it's, yeah, Kaitsu really shines, and he was given all the liberty in the world to create those tribal patterns for the song, and he did them brilliantly, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. You also mentioned in the kind of lead up to this album that you wanted to use the orchestras in a different manner, and now obviously the orchestras are very prominent in the second part of the. So what was your kind of approach when kind of composing these songs?
Contrast, that was the big idea, so that the human part of the album would only have live strings and choir. We can't leave those out. They're too much Nightwish, but we left the whole orchestra out for the whole first part of the album, and then went full on for the orchestral piece. And it just creates a nice contrast, and also leaving the orchestra out gives more space to human voices playing their instruments, singing their thing.
Well, in terms of music, what is the role, I suppose, of well, we talked about it a little bit, but the role of music in terms of our species. You kind of said we are the only ones who are creative, we are the only ones who kind of...
It's something different for everybody, I guess. Music can be comforting, can be even informative. It can be our way to communicate with the world. It can be a way to release your inner demons, get rid of them.
Right.
All these things that I mentioned, you know, work
well,
with me. It can be done for pure entertainment, to dance about, nothing else, nothing wrong with that.
With all those elements, because, well, certain tracks, from your past, I can guess kind of where they would fall in those categories, but are they all still there for you? All those kind of, is it very cathartic?
Cathartic is the word, it really is the word. I honestly don't think I would function as a member of the human species if I weren't allowed to write music, write songs. Because sometimes the noise within and the pressure within is so massive that it needs to be let out. And the only way that I can fully let it out is to write a song, write an album, and then I feel more balanced again.
But I find that very interesting, because once an album is done, and then, like you say, you were in a very prolific period. You were writing well, and everything was going well. So when that part is kind of done, is that almost like a sad time for you, where the creativity flow of creativity stops in a way? Yeah,
it's a very melancholic time, and at that point you just need to fill your calendar and be busy, like doing a promotional trip.
Fair enough.
I swear to, so it keeps your mind occupied.
Because are you already kind of thinking about, I suppose live show definitely, but thinking about more other ideas, or are you very, very well entrenched in this subject material right now?
I'm actually already thinking about something new. We are going to do a new Auri album next year in 2021, so it's time to focus on that one after a while. At the moment it's all about promoting this album, getting the live show together, going on tour, but once things settle, get to their routine, yeah, something new.
Because is that one thing maybe you've learned from doing Auri and Floor did her own thing, Marco is doing his thing.
They really complement each other.
Well, yeah, that
Yeah.
you kind of need those other creative outings to the, like you kind of said to get that energy.
Yeah, it helps. It did something for me a few years ago doing that Auri album, and I bet it does the same with the other band members.
Right.
Marco doing his solo, he just came from a tour, seems like a really content man at the moment, ready to go on with Nightwish. So these things matter, same with Floor, same with everybody.
Final question then. There's one song I wanted to get into a little bit more, which is kind of the the first is it first single, Noise?
Yeah.
That video, usually I don't watch videos too much, but you made it, I think you conceded an effort to make a good video. So what was it about this song that you wanted to capture in a sense?
For years, I thought that we're not going to do another music video. I just kind of grew tired of them. But then it was Floor actually who convinced me that I think we should make. It's still a good tool, spreading the album. And I said, okay, darling, if you want, we can do one. But if we do one, it needs to be really high quality and such that you don't see the band members playing or singing. Because we've seen enough of that. And then we came up with this concept of what the video is about. Noise was the perfect music for it. Right. And then just did our thing, and it's stunning stuff. It really is a beautiful video, and the message gets through pretty obviously, I think.
Well, yeah, that's one thing that when I heard the song, obviously, but when I saw the video, it kind of made more sense in a way. But that idea that, well, maybe this isn't the takeaway that you had for it, but kind of ignoring all the beauties in front of you because you're looking at this screen. That's kind of how I looked at it. But for you, what is this noise?
The noise is the constant noise that we get from everywhere, all the time. And most of it is really noise, but there are some really beautiful stuff in between if you can listen. And there are beautiful facts in between all the gossip. You just need to learn how to pick them up. And that's what the song is about. It's not about bashing cell phones,
right?
But it's about how you have harnessed the use of technology. Because technology is wonderful.
Of course.
Internet, smartphones, smart devices, everything. The potential is so massive for good. And then we use them to take selfies, and we live off likes, and we act differently in the digital world than we do in the normal life. There's such darkness hidden in it that we wanted to bring out through this video for people to think about. And one last thing, I think for me at least the video is actually quite optimistic. Many
Sure.
people have said that it's so dark, I can't watch it. But no, it's a bit tongue in the cheek, but it makes you think, and in the end you see this beautiful landscape reminding people that the real world is still out there, and it's really easy to access it if you just go out.
So in a way, kind of how we think so technology is ruining everything, that's kind of over-exaggerated a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and I do have to blame the media a little bit for that, because they are spoon-feeding us bullshit all the time. Because they think that filth sells. But when's the last time you tried to approach people with positive, real news?
Hopefully in the future.
I hope so.
Tuomas, always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
You too. Thank you so much.